I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking into, well, a really quite perplexing case. It's about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He's a Maryland resident who, according to multiple reports, seems to have been mistakenly deported to El Salvador. So our mission today is to unpack the circumstances around this and, the reactions it's caused based on what our sources are telling us.
It really is a situation that immediately raises some red flags, doesn't it?
It does.
The name, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, keeps coming up, consistently identified as being from Maryland.
Right. Abrego Garcia, Kilmar Garcia, different variations, but clearly the same person.
Yes. And then deported specifically to El Salvador. It really signals that somewhere along the line, a significant error likely occurred within the system.
Absolutely. And it's not just a simple administrative error, it seems.
Yeah.
Because we also see that El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele,
yeah.
he has stated quite clearly, apparently, that he won't return the man.
Which just adds this whole other layer, right? An international dimension.
Exactly, to what already looks like a very troubling situation domestically.
And what's really fascinating here, or perhaps worrying, is the context of a Supreme Court ruling.
Yes, that was mentioned. A 9-0 ruling.
Unanimous. 9-0, which strongly suggests there was a very clear legal decision, maybe a precedent, that should have, protected Abrego Garcia.
Protected him from this exact outcome.
Precisely. So it really begs the question, how could such a clear legal safeguard just be overlooked?
It makes you wonder about the process itself, the breakdown.
Definitely.
We also see Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen's name connected to this.
Van Hollen, right.
Which makes sense. A Maryland resident involved.
Yeah.
It seems likely he's involved in trying to figure out what happened.
We're potentially trying to rectify it, from a political angle, especially given this apparent legal misstep.
And there's a judge mentioned, too.
No.
Judge Policinas.
Yes, Judge Shinas. Her name appears. It could mean the judicial system was involved earlier with Abrego Garcia's case, or perhaps she's now part of the fallout discussion after the deportation.
It just shows how many different facets these cases have. Legal, political.
Judicial, yeah.
Very complex.
The sources also mention SICO and El Salvador prison.
Right. SICO likely refers to a specific facility, a detention center, maybe a high-security prison in El Salvador.
So possibly where Abrego Garcia is being held now.
That seems to be the implication. It gives a pretty stark picture of the reality on the ground for him after this mistaken deportation.
Okay, but here's something else. There's a mention of Abrego Garcia MS-13.
Yes. That's a potentially complicating factor, definitely.
So a possible link to the MS-13 gang?
It's mentioned in the text we have. Now, it's not explicitly stated in this specific excerpt as the reason he was deported, but, you can see how that could influence things.
Especially President Bukele's stance, maybe, given his crackdown on gangs. Exactly. It introduces this tension, this conflict with the idea that the deportation was purely a mistake.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
Because even if there was a procedural error in the deportation itself, this potential background information, it raises difficult questions.
Questions about how different authorities might be viewing him and the situation as a whole. It's quite a tangled web.
Definitely tangled.
And interestingly, you also see some other names pop up. Stephen Miller, Lawrence Tribe.
Oh, and Andrew Weissman, Trump MSNBC, is mentioned too.
Right. Now, there's no direct quote or explicit link in this text showing how they connect directly to Garcia's case. But these are figures often involved in those, broader legal and political debates.
Particularly around immigration policy and law.
Exactly. So their mention suggests this specific case, the story about Abrego Garcia, has resonated. It's perhaps being discussed within those wider conversations.
Which brings us back, I suppose, to the central question that seems to be floating around. Kilmar Abrego Garcia legal status.
Yes. What was his actual legal standing in the U.S.?
And why, if he had this potential MS-13 connection, was his deportation still considered a mistake? There seems to be a contradiction there, or at least missing information.
Understanding his precise legal situation feels key to really unraveling this whole thing.
Yeah.
And the fact that his status is even, a point of discussion after the deportation, it just underscores the complexities
Yep.
and the potential for serious errors within immigration enforcement.
It really makes you think about the human element caught up in these huge systems.
Absolutely.
Okay, so wrapping this up,
Mm-hmm.
we've seen what looks like a clear error leading to a deportation. We have a head of state, Bukele, refusing to correct it, and all these potential legal and political threads spinning out from this one case, Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
Right. And this really raises a significant point, something maybe for our listeners to consider. What does it truly mean when a mistake like this happens, a mistake at this level with these kinds of consequences?
Yeah, what does it say about the checks and balances?
Exactly, the checks and balances within deportation processes. This single case, it really throws a spotlight on just how intricate and often incredibly high stakes immigration law is when it meets reality.